Wales and South Africa Autumn Internationals. It's ranked number 2 in the world, travelling to Wales to play ranked number 9. But ultimately, you got Six Nations champions up against Rugby World Cup champions. Traditionally, pretty close fixtures in recent times, kind of epitomised by that most recent result, which was the South African win at the World Cup, 19 points to 16. Very much an arm wrestle, that one, but it's a different looking game this time. Wales are without a heap of players with injuries. It's been a slightly shifted around squad for the South Africans as well, with a few guys out injured too. Maybe not quite as long an injury list, but still, yeah, a couple of big guns out. And a chance for South Africa to secure number 1 spot if they can win by 16 points or more, is my understanding. So, yeah, we'll go through the squads, some of the stats, predictions, recent results, and you guys can let me know your thoughts. So like I mentioned, it's pretty close, although apart from that Rugby World Cup game, which is probably the one that burns the most for Wales fans, Wales over the last 5 have actually got a pretty good record over the Springboks, 4-1. But generally pretty close games. You've got a 24-22 there. You've got a 22-20. Big wins are like 20-11 and 27-13. So average score is 22-17 to Wales. So it's been pretty tight. But as I mentioned, the most recent one is that win for South Africa at the World Cup. Wales, I mentioned their lineup's kind of missing a few guys. Like there's no Alan Wynne-Jones, he's injured in last week's game. There's no Moriarty, who was injured in last week's game. Yeah, the list, I mean, Justin Tipperik's out. The list kind of goes on. Ken Owens, like really experienced guys are out of this Wales squad. So it is a chance for them to build depth. But it's going to be a big old test. And the All Blacks 1 week, they got pretty handily beaten. And now South Africa the next. So it doesn't get any easier. Rhys Carey, Ryan Elias, and Thomas Francis are the front row. So Carey moves in to start in the number 1 jersey. Dylan Lewis is out injured as well. So yeah, the injury list from last week's game kind of continues to grow. Elias, I mean, the line-out stats weren't actually too bad, but boy, did they miss a couple of good ones, good opportunities last week. So it's going to be an area to improve. He's the one who cops all the flack, but Wayne Pivot kind of deflected a bit of attention to him, saying it's sometimes the jumper's not just the throw. But there you go. So they'll be in with a big task trying to stop the big Springbok scrum, which will be an area of strength for the Springboks as always. So they'll need to be up to the task. Will Rowland starts because Alan Wynne is out and Adam Baird is still there as well. Adam Baird may prove pretty crucial because the Springboks love a maul, and Adam Baird loves to get those big mitts of his over and try to hold up and grab the ball carrier to stop those mauls. So he may be a key cog in the Welsh defence. Jenkins is back into the 23. He's at 6. Tame Basham, who was outstanding in a losing effort last week, good work rate, good turnovers, is there at 7. And Aaron Wainwright, the dynamic guy, is there at number 8. So albeit without some big guns, I still think it's a pretty good looking Wales forward pack. That being said, I said similar last week and they got done by the ABs. So I still stand by what I said. I reckon the Welsh squad looks good. Thomas Williams is 9 and Dan Bigger is back into the 23 at 10. Remember, he was unavailable last week because he plays his club rugby in England, but that's a bit of added experience. I mean, I know Anscombe's not kind of a spring chicken, but he hasn't played international rugby for a wee while, so it was maybe a bit of a tough ask to drop him in against the All Blacks to start with. And actually, when Priestland came on, they looked a little bit more settled, but Priestland's not even in the 23. Tompkins and Davis are the 12-13 combo. So Tompkins is another guy back from England to play this week now that he's released, so that's a bit of good news. And Jonathan Davis is captain at 13, so a lot of experience there. Rhys Sammer is also another one back from England. He's proper lightning on that right wing. It'd be fun to see him in a foot race with the likes of Mapimpi. So let's put our fingers crossed for that one. And Josh Adams is there on the left wing. He'll need to be good under the high ball, but generally he is. So good to see him kind of consistently taking that 11 jersey for Wales. And McNichol, I thought apart from throwing an intercept past the Bowden Barrett, McNichol was pretty good last week. So likewise, he will need to be secure under what will undoubtedly a bit of an aerial assault. Bradley Roberts, I think South African born, right, is going to get his potential Wales debut if he comes in off the bench. Plays his rugby in Ulster. So yeah, the stocks of hookers in Wales are slightly concerningly low, but fingers crossed he has a good game. Wyn Jones has dropped to the bench. Will Griff-John is there on the bench as well. Ben Carter moves in with Alan Wynn being out and Will Rowlands being promoted. Ben Carter gets a spot. He's got a lot of potential about him as well, but maybe another one you want to ease into it rather than start him against the Boks. Seb Davis is still there. Gareth Davis is still there. Anscombe drops to the bench. And also good news having Liam Williams back. He's been having a bit of a niggle of his own. So he'd be ideally a guy you want to start against the Boks. But yeah, if he's not 100%, easing him back in seems like the right thing. So there's no Myhill. He's not preferred with Roberts being there. As I mentioned, Dylan Lewis is injured. Kid Owen's injured. But they reckon Owens might be back for the Aussie game. So fingers crossed for him. Owen Lane's out of 23. But there you go. Kind of movers and shakers with the old Welsh squad. For South Africa, it's not huge changes from the team that played in the Rugby Championship, but there are a couple of changes in the backline. Oxenche, Bongi Mbonambi, and Trevor Nyakane is that front row. I like that front row a lot. I still reckon Trevor seems to have more luck when he's off the bench, but with the South Africans, it doesn't really matter if you start or if you are playing from the bench because they tend not to give hookers and props like 60, 70 minutes. It's like 40, 45, and then you're going to be subbed. So either way, kind of works for those guys. Bongi, with those carries of his at maul time especially, will be a guy to try and bring down. Sometimes he's going to peel off, and one of those unfortunate backs is going to have to make a tackle, so they'll need to be aware of him because he gets really low and he's just like a tank, man. He's very hard to bring down. Eben Etzebeth and Lut Diaka is a bloody good locking duo. One of the best locking duos in the world, you would have to say. Eben with the size and the power, and then old Lut Diaka has got a hell of a skill set. So yeah, they'll be looking to pinch some line-out ball and secure that of their own to help set up that maul. Khaleesi, Smith, and Vermeulen are the back row. Khaleesi is captain. Again, they're pretty consistent. Quokka Smith has maybe won a few people over in recent times. Often got criticised for being a touch on the small side, but he is also very quick and good at the breakdown. And then you've got a bit of size with Khaleesi and Vermeulen there as well. Vermeulen, pretty good under the high ball. Likes to take a few of the catches for the Springboks. So if they are going to try and kick high balls to the box, if the forwards are going to be there, Vermeulen is going to be a guy to catch it. Like, loves taking a restart and then trucking it back up, does old Dwayne. Herschel Yankees and Andre Pollard at 19 combos. So Faf de Klerk is one of the guys I mentioned who is out injured. So Herschel gets a chance to start. Doesn't get many chances to start, does Herschel. So this is a good chance for him to build some depth. Deolinde and have been immovable objects in that Springbok midfield for a bloody long time. I know Frans Steyn got a few minutes and Jesse Kriel I think got one game this year, but for the most part it's been those guys 80 minutes every game. And they are a heck of a duo as well. Very different players, but Deolinde with the power. He's got the defensive reads and the skill set. So again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But also keep in mind on building some depth, I guess, would be my thing. Mapimpi's on one wing. Jesse Kriel is on the other. Remember, Sibu Nkosi, I think, had issues with his visa. Seems a bizarre one to not get that sorted prior to the tour. But Jesse Kriel, I've always kind of wished Jesse Kriel had stayed as an outside back, to be honest. He's a bloody good fullback, but they've insisted on making him a midfielder for years now. So, he gets a chance on the wing. He's no slouch. It's a slightly surprising selection, I guess. I think everyone's clamouring for Fassi to get some time, but he's still going to have to wait. But there's no Willie LaRue for this one. It's Damien Williams there at fullback. So he's a guy who seems to have so much potential, but not quite I don't want to call it determination, but maybe just like I think it's a mental thing. Like, the skills are there, but when the pressure's on, sometimes the skills just let them down. The All Blacks have talked about that in their history as well, like about how they always used to muck it up at World Cups, and mental skills is definitely a thing. So I'm not sure how you improve that, whether it's experience, whether it's getting a kind of a skills coach in to work on that side of the game, but he's got heaps of potential. So, yeah, it's just about executing it under pressure, I suppose, for him. Marks, Kitsoff, and Koch, like I mentioned, like the front row replacements are just as good as the starters, and either way, you're in trouble when these guys come running onto the field. Mostert, Visa, who's been in great form in the Premiership. Reinach gets a crack because Faf is out, and Herschel starting. Elton Yankees and Frans Steyn there as well. Elton Yankees had a pretty good game, I think, against the All Blacks at the end of that Rugby Championship. So good for him to be in the mix still. Cheslin Colby's still injured, like I mentioned. Faf's injured, so yeah, some guys out. And then Nkosi with the visa thing is bizarre. Wales, they'll definitely need to get their line out right. I mentioned they had issues with that last week, but if you're going to play the Springboks, you want to get your set piece absolutely sorted. Easier said than done, but that's going to be one kind of key fix. South Africa like to maul. Wales like to maul too, and as I mentioned, Adam Baird, so that's going to be kind of an interesting battle to see which side gets on top, because both sides are partial to a wee maul. Wales will need to be going to the high ball because South Africa are going to kick it to them. As I mentioned, it's an area that they've caused teams all kinds of problems. If you don't get it right and South Africa are able to regather those high kicks, you will be in trouble. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see who ends up with more position in this game, because both sides are kind of quite happy to go through the phases. So I don't expect to see any kind of vastly different tactical changes from each side. But yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Predictions-wise, it's supposed to be one of the closest games of the weekend, if not the closest, I believe. The bookies have got South Africa by 8. And the Rugby Forecast algorithm says by 4. Average score I mentioned in the games is 22-17 to Wales, going back a few years now. But yeah, traditionally pretty close games. It is on at the Principality. It's on at 5:30 local time, I believe, which maybe, is that 6 or 7:30 South African time? It's a morning game evening game in South Africa, morning game for us here in New Zealand. I think it's 6:30 in the morning, which is a pretty reasonable game. But we've got rugby all bloody morning, man. It's a proper feast. Italy and New Zealand and Japan and Ireland and England and Tonga, then this game, and then France and Argentina. So yeah, if you guys are in the US of A, they're all on Flow Rugby, so happy they've got all the games on. I think Supersport in South Africa, Sky here in New Zealand, Stan in Australia, they're kind of usual suspects. But yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts. How do you reckon this one's going to go? Can Wales get some revenge for that World Cup, or do you think they are missing a few too many big guns? For South Africa, would you have liked to see them try some of the young guys more? Are you pretty happy with this strong lineup to try and get that number 1 spot in the world back? You guys have any thoughts? And I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.